The message arrived on a Tuesday morning. Yuna sat in her small office on the human diplomatic station, staring at a cup of coffee that had gone cold an hour ago. The screen in front of her displayed words in perfect, sterile translation. The Valdari Empire requested her presence. Not invited. Requested. There was a difference. She read the message 3 times. Each time, the meaning remained the same. The Empire wanted a representative of humanity to appear before the Grand Assembly. They wanted to talk. Yuna knew what that meant. When the Valdari Empire wanted to talk, someone usually ended up bowing. Her assistant, a young man named Juan, poked his head inside, his face etched with the same worry that seemed to cling to everyone these days. For 6 months, Valdari scouts had haunted the edges of human colonies. They're silent, observing ships, a constant shadow on human trade routes. They were always watching. "Prepare my ship," Yuna said, her voice calm. "The small one. I'll go alone." Juan opened his mouth to argue, then thought better of it. He knew better. When Yuna made a decision, it was final. She had been humanity's ambassador for 12 years. She knew how to handle herself. The 5-day journey was spent immersed in reports. Yuna studied everything Earth's intelligence had gathered about the Valdari, 3,000 star systems under their control, 147 conquered species, and military so vast it could blanket planets. They were ancient, powerful, and utterly certain of their dominion. Humanity was none of those things. 50 systems, 1 species, small fleets that rarely ventured far. On paper, it was no contest. The Valdari were giants. Humans were insects. Yet, Yuna smiled as she read. Her hand drifted to her coat pocket, touching the carefully folded newspaper inside. It was 3 months old, a physical artifact in a digital age, and her secret weapon. On the 5th day, the Valdari throne world filled her viewscreen. It was a masterpiece of controlled beauty, crystal towers spearing the sky, cities sprawling across continents, ships moving in flawless formation around orbital stations. Everything was order, everything was control, a civilization built over millennia. Her ship descended unchallenged. She was expected. The landing bay was vast and empty save for 24 guards in mirror-bright armor, their weapons capable of burning through steel. They watched her, a single human woman in a simple black suit, as she stepped onto the polished stone. One guard, taller than the rest, stepped forward. His eyes, which had witnessed 100 species surrender, looked down at her. "You are alone?" he asked, his voice a low rumble. "Yes," Yuna replied. "Your guards?" "I didn't bring any." Confusion flickered across his face. Every delegate brought guards. Every species tried to project strength. This human stood alone. He led her through endless corridors, their walls carved with scenes of Valdari victory, fleets destroyed, armies defeated, worlds surrendering. The message was unambiguous: the Empire always wins. They passed other delegates, avian, lithoid, forms that defied description, all surrounded by protective entourages. They looked at Yuna with something akin to pity. The massive door to the Grand Assembly was carved from a single piece of white stone, etched with the names of every conquered species. It opened without a sound. The hall was immense, its ceiling lost in shadow, its floor a sheet of polished stone reflecting the thousands of beings gathered on balconies and in rows that stretched into darkness. At the far end, rising from the floor like a mountain of captured rainbows, was the crystal throne, and upon it sat Emperor Jiho. Pictures did not do him justice. He was massive, clad in gold and silver armor, a crown of gems from 100 worlds upon his head. His face was a mask of cold authority, his eyes holding the weight of fallen civilizations. His council stood around him: Admiral Tay, a walking tapestry of military honors; High Priest Day, his robes pooling on the floor, and other powerful, certain figures. A voice echoed through the hall, small and insignificant in the vast space: "Ambassador Yuna of humanity." Her footsteps were the only sound as she walked the impossible length of the hall. Click, click, click. She stopped at the base of the throne and looked up. The Emperor looked down. The silence was a weapon, and he wielded it expertly, waiting for her to break. Yuna simply stood, hands clasped, her expression one of serene patience. Finally, the Emperor leaned forward, his voice filling the hall without effort. He spoke of the Empire's divine order, the peace it brought to chaos, the civilization it bestowed upon the primitive. He spoke of the benefits of imperial rule, protection, trade, technology. All it cost was independence. Admiral Tay stepped forward, A holographic display materialized, showing the paltry 50 stars of human space beside the sprawling Valdari armada. The comparison was laughable. He explained, in condescendingly simple terms, how the Valdari fleet would sweep through human space in 3 weeks. Colonies would surrender or burn. It would be quick, merciful. Yuna listened, nodding slowly as if processing the information. High Priest Day moved next, his voice a soft, terrifying contrast. He spoke of destiny, the natural order where the strong rule and the weak serve. He gestured to the carvings on the walls. All those species had resisted at first, all had learned, now they lived in peace, under imperial guidance. Emperor Jiho raised his hand. Silence fell. He stood from his throne, a rare, significant act, and descended the steps, stopping 3 meters from Yuna, close enough to tower over her. He delivered the ultimatum. Humanity had one standard week: surrender its military, accept imperial governors, pay tribute, become part of the empire, or cease to exist. Do you understand? He asked. Yes. Will you carry this message? Yes. Do you have any questions? Yuna paused. Yes, actually. 1. A ripple of surprise went through the hall. Delegates did not have questions, they had pleas. The Emperor gestured for her to continue. How much does the Empire know about human history? She asked. Admiral Tay scoffed. Enough. You are young, you are weak, you have built nothing of note. Yuna nodded, as if this made perfect sense. Of course, you have many species to watch. She reached slowly into her coat pocket. Guards tensed, weapons humming to life. She withdrew a folded piece of paper, an ancient, physical newspaper. She unfolded it with deliberate care, the rustling loud in the silence. She held it up. The headline was large, bold, and in English. The Emperor's translation implant processed it, and something imperceptible shifted in his eyes. Admiral Tay demanded to know the meaning of this farce. It's not a farce, Yuna said, her smile polite. This newspaper is 3 months old. It might change how you view the situation. Perhaps we should discuss this before any final decisions are made. The Emperor held up his hand, his gaze fixed on Yuna. What does it say? Yuna turned the paper around for the hall to see. The headline dominated the page, Project STARWEAVER Complete. Below it was an image of an impossible structure, a web of metal and energy encircling a sun. She explained while the Valdari High Command stared, dumbfounded. Humanity had not been building warships, they had been building a shell around their home star, a stellar array to harvest energy, not for war, but for survival. Their sun was slowly dying, and humanity had chosen to save it rather than abandon it. It captures 0.1% of the sun's total output, she said calmly. It doesn't sound like much, but 0.1% of a star is more energy than our entire species has consumed in its history. She pointed to the article, to the interviews with engineers and physicists, that energy-powered defensive shields that could stop any known weapon. It fueled gravitational field generators strong enough to tear apart fleets. It created a fortress of each human star system. Admiral Tay snatched the paper, his face cycling through confusion, disbelief, and dawning horror. He ordered an aide to verify it. The young officer, Yule, worked his datapad frantically, his face paling as he found the reports Valdari scouts had filed, reports that described the arrays as industrial power stations, unworthy of further military analysis. The Emperor read the newspaper, his knuckles white. Why did we not know of this? You didn't know what to look for, Yuna explained gently. You were looking for weapons that looked like weapons. We built tools for survival. The capability is the same. The hall was utterly silent as she detailed the scope: 50 star systems, 30 already fortified, all connected to a grid. Attacking one meant facing the combined defensive output of 30 suns. A war would be one of mutual destruction. Emperor Jiho returned to his throne, his mind racing. 3,000 years of conquest, all predicated on knowing the enemy. They had known everything about human ships and colonies, and nothing about their will. He looked at Yuna, truly seeing her for the first time, not a subject, but the representative of a species that had stared into the abyss and built a ladder out. The ultimatum is withdrawn, the Emperor said. The hall erupted in shocked gasps. He silenced them with a gesture. The Empire respects strength. You have demonstrated strength not through threat, but through achievement. War would be unacceptable. Admiral Tay looked furious. But a glance at the tactical reports, the projected casualties, the system-wide destruction, silenced him. High Priest Day looked at Yuna with newfound respect. What followed were hours of negotiation, not of surrender, but of partnership. A treaty was drafted. Humanity would remain independent, sharing its knowledge of stellar engineering, a technology the Valdari desperately needed for their own aging stars. In return, the Empire would guarantee human borders and treat them as equals. As Yuna prepared to leave, Admiral Tay approached her quietly. "Would you have truly fought?" he asked. "Used those arrays as weapons?" Yuna met his gaze. "We have faced the death of our son, Admiral. We have fought for survival for 2 centuries. If pushed to extinction, we would fight with everything we have. I hope we never have to find out." Her ship lifted off from the throne world. As it jumped to FTL, she looked at the newspaper one last time. Project STARWEAVER complete. Miho and Sora would be pleased. Their engineering had not only saved their home, it had secured its future. Behind her, the Valdari Empire began to adapt to a new reality. Humanity was not a subject, they were partners, a species that had earned its place not by conquest, but by the sheer, unyielding will to survive. And in 50 systems across human space, the solar arrays continued their silent, endless work, harvesting the light of stars, the legacy of a people who had chosen to build wonders while others built weapons.